Eleanor Briggs stepped off the dusty stagecoach with her small wooden trunk held tightly in both hands. The sun was sinking low behind the Wyoming hills, turning the sky a warm gold that softened the edges of everything. She stood still for a moment on the packed earth road, letting the cool air settle around her. After days of travel, everything felt strange yet hopeful, as if this wide land held a promise she had not dared to imagine before. She had come a long way from the crowded streets of St. Louis, from the noise, the heavy smoke, and the cramped boarding house where she had lived for years. Nothing there had felt like home. Nothing there had offered a future. So when she saw the advertisement in the newspaper, widowed rancher seeking mail-order bride to help raise 2 young daughters, something in her heart stirred. She had read it again and again. A soft voice inside her insisted that maybe, just maybe, this was the new beginning she needed. A quiet place, a family, a purpose. But now, standing in the open air of Willow Creek, she felt a knot of worry tight in her chest. The small town had only a few buildings. A general store, a blacksmith, a post office, and a modest hotel with peeling paint. No one stood waiting with flowers or a polite greeting. No man stepped forward with a hat in hand, saying her name. She looked around, wondering if something had gone wrong, wondering if she had made a mistake. The stagecoach driver climbed down, brushing dust from his sleeves. "You sure this is where you meant to get off?" he asked kindly. "Not much here, other than the trail to the Hargrove Ranch." "Yes, this is the place," she answered, her voice soft but steady. "Well then," he said, lifting her trunk with ease and setting it on the ground beside her. "Good luck to you, miss." She thanked him, watched the stagecoach rumble away, and then found herself alone on the quiet street. A few townspeople passed by with polite nods. She returned them, but felt her pulse quicken. She unfolded a small letter from her pocket, reading Thomas Hargrove's neat handwriting once more. He had written that he would meet her at the hotel on her arrival. Yet the porch was empty. With no better choice, she carried her trunk toward the hotel, her boots crunching softly in the dust. Inside, the lobby smelled faintly of wood smoke and old pine. A tall, thin man with a thick mustache stood behind the counter. "Good evening," he said. "Looking for a room? I'm actually looking for Thomas Hargrove. He was supposed to meet me here today." The man's eyebrows lifted in surprise. "Ah, you must be Miss Briggs." Her heart skipped. "Yes. Is everything all right?" The hotel keeper hesitated. He glanced toward the window as if checking who might be listening. "I'm afraid Mr. Hargrove isn't here. He was taken to a small clinic in Willow Glen 2 days ago. Sudden fever. Nothing too serious, they say. But he had to go quickly." Eleanor felt her breath catch. "Oh, I see. He sent a message." The man continued, reaching beneath the counter. "Said to give you this if you arrived before he came back." He handed her a short note. The paper trembled slightly in her hands as she opened it. "Miss Briggs, I am sorry I cannot meet you as planned. My health needed tending, but I will return as soon as the doctor allows it. Until then, please make your way to the ranch. The children are in the care of my hired hand, Mr. Weaver, who will welcome your help. I trust your journey was safe. Thomas Hargrove." Eleanor read the note twice. The words felt polite yet distant, but she could not blame him. Illness came without warning. Still, the knot of worry tightened. She had never met these children. She had never even seen the ranch. And now she was being asked to go there alone, to act as if she already belonged. The hotel keeper pointed out the direction of the ranch, telling her it was about an hour's walk. She thanked him, lifted her trunk again, and stepped outside into the early evening. As she walked along the narrow path leading out of town, the sounds of the settlement faded behind her. The land opened wide, covered in tall, waving grasses that sparkled in the fading light. The air smelled of sage and distant pine. A gentle wind brushed her hair back, cooling her warm cheeks. With each step, her fear mixed with a growing sense of quiet determination. She had faced loneliness before. She had survived hardships worse than uncertainty. And if 2 little girls needed kindness, then she would give it freely. By the time she reached the split-rail fence marking the Hargrove property, the sky had deepened to lavender and blue. The ranch house came into view large, sturdy, weathered by wind but well cared for. Smoke rose from the chimney, drifting in thin ribbons. She approached the door and knocked lightly. After a moment, footsteps approached, and a tall, bearded man opened the door. His eyes, though tired, were gentle. "You must be Miss Briggs," he said. "Name's Henry Weaver. Mr. Hargrove told me you'd be coming." "Thank you," she replied. "I hope my arrival isn't a trouble." "Not at all. The girls will be glad for another friendly face around here. They've been missing their pa, something fierce." He led her inside, where warmth from the fireplace wrapped around her. The interior smelled of freshly cooked beans and warm bread. It felt lived in, a little messy, but full of life. Before Henry could say more, two small faces peeked from the doorway to what looked like a kitchen. A girl with long brown braids stared shyly. Beside her stood a slightly older child with sharp, curious eyes. "These are Mr. Hargrove's girls," Henry said. "Josie is the oldest. And the younger one there is Lila." Eleanor knelt to their height. "Hello," she said softly. "It's very nice to meet you both." The girls exchanged glances but said nothing at first. Josie stepped forward slightly. "Are you the lady from the letter?" she asked, her voice cautious. "Yes," Eleanor answered. "Your father invited me to come here." Lila stepped beside her sister, gripping Josie's hand. "Will you stay until he comes back?" she asked. "If you'll have me," Eleanor said kindly. The littlest girl nodded, and something warm flickered in her eyes. The children didn't know her yet, but they seemed to sense her gentleness. That small bit of trust gave Eleanor courage. Henry helped carry her trunk to the spare room at the end of the hall. It was small but clean, with a simple bed, a narrow dresser, and a window overlooking the pasture. Moonlight had started to rise, casting pale silver across the floorboards. Eleanor set her things down and took a moment to breathe deeply. This place, though unfamiliar, felt far removed from the noise and worry of her old life. After settling in, she joined Henry and the girls in the kitchen for a late meal. The children watched her with cautious eyes, studying her every movement, as if deciding whether she could be trusted. Eleanor didn't blame them. They had lost their mother only a year earlier. A stranger arriving at their home must feel unsettling. She spoke to them gently, asking simple questions: what chores they liked, what their favorite animals on the ranch were, whether they enjoyed helping with cooking. Slowly, their stiff posture eased. Lila whispered that she liked feeding the chickens. Josie nodded and added that she sometimes helped care for their horse, Ginger. Eleanor listened closely, offering warm smiles without forcing the conversation. She wanted the girls to know she respected their feelings. Children sensed sincerity quickly, and she hoped they sensed it in her. After dinner, Henry prepared the girls for bed, while Eleanor washed the dishes. The warm water soothed her tired hands, and the soft clatter of pots felt strangely comforting, as if she had stepped into a life with rhythms she could learn to love. Soon, the girls returned to say goodnight. Lila hurried over and wrapped her small arms around Eleanor's waist. The embrace surprised her, but she knelt and hugged the child back. "Good night, Miss Ellie," Lila whispered, a small nickname she had created without hesitation. Josie didn't hug her, but she offered a polite, "Good night." And for a child who carried so much responsibility in her young eyes, it felt like a meaningful step. When the house finally grew quiet, Eleanor returned to her small room. She sat on the edge of the bed, her thoughts swirling like the wind outside. Things had not happened as she expected. Instead of meeting a man ready to greet his mail-order bride, she had walked into a home where two children needed stability, where illness had taken their father far away, and where a stranger was being asked to fill a place that was not yet hers. But she felt something calm settle inside her. She had not traveled all this way for nothing. She had come because she wanted a fresh start, and whether Thomas Hargrove was here or not, she could already see that this ranch needed gentle hands and steady care. She looked out the window at the moonlit fields stretching far into the darkness. Tomorrow would bring new chores and new challenges. She would tidy the house, help the girls with their morning routines, and learn her way around the ranch. She would remain until Mr. Hargrove returned, just as the letter instructed. And maybe, just maybe, the days ahead would shape a future she had not yet dared to imagine. With that quiet hope in her heart, Eleanor lay down and let the peaceful stillness of the Wyoming night carry her into sleep. The next morning arrived softly, with pale sunlight spilling through the small window in Eleanor's room. She awoke before the others, partly out of habit, and partly because the stillness of the ranch made her feel both calm and alert at the same time. After dressing, she stepped quietly into the hallway, where the faint smell of morning dew drifted through the slightly open front door. The ranch seemed peaceful in the early light. Birds were singing near the fence line, and the air was cool enough to make her wrap her shawl tighter around her shoulders. She found the kitchen almost exactly as she had left it the night before, quiet, neat, but waiting for someone to bring it to life. Eleanor decided to start breakfast. She cracked eggs into a pan, sliced bread for toasting, and warmed a little milk for the children. The simple tasks steadied her nerves. She had not known these girls long, but she already felt responsible for their comfort, their safety, and their sense of routine while their father was away. She was stirring the eggs when small footsteps padded down the hallway. Lila appeared first, rubbing her sleepy eyes and clutching a worn, stuffed rabbit. She stopped when she saw Eleanor, her face brightening instantly. "Good morning, Miss Ellie," she said in her soft voice. "Good morning, sweetheart," Eleanor replied with a warm smile. "Did you sleep well?" Lila nodded and climbed onto one of the wooden chairs, letting her legs swing freely above the floor. Josie followed soon after, her hair unbrushed but her eyes sharp and awake. "Is Henry still sleeping?" Josie asked, glancing toward the barn through the window. "I think he must be," Eleanor answered. "It's still early." Josie nodded with the seriousness of someone much older than 9. "He worked late last night, fixing the barn door. He gets tired sometimes." Eleanor paused, understanding the hint of worry in the child's tone. "We'll all help more around here," she said gently. "No one should have to do everything alone." 17 well, to understanding. Josie looked down, but the corners of her mouth softened a little. They ate together, the girls talking more freely now that they had grown a bit comfortable with Eleanor. Leela told her about a robin she had seen last spring. Josie explained how Ginger, their mare, always stamped her hoof twice if she wanted fresh hay. These details made Eleanor smile. She loved hearing them describe the small joys and routines of ranch life. After breakfast, she helped them get dressed and ready for the day. Henry appeared in the kitchen soon after, yawning but still offering a kind greeting. "Girls, don't forget," he said with a gentle tone. "Stay close to the house today. The river is running fast this time of year." Josie nodded quickly, used to the rule. Leela pouted slightly, not because she wanted to disobey, but because she had the playful spirit of a child who loved exploring. Eleanor noted the reminder carefully. She had never seen the river herself, but if Henry warned them often, it must be something to avoid. The day moved along quietly. Eleanor swept the floors, helped the girls with their morning chores, and listened to Henry update her on where things were kept in the pantry and how the chickens liked their feed scattered. She felt the weight of new responsibility, but also a growing confidence. She wanted to do well. By late morning, the sun had risen high, the air warm and pleasant. Eleanor stepped outside to shake a rug when she realized the yard was unusually silent. Lila had been playing near the porch earlier, humming to herself. Josie had been helping her carry small stones to build a pretend house near the tree stump. But now, the space was empty. Eleanor looked around. The barn door was open, but Henry was inside working. The girls were not there. Her pulse quickened. She called out gently at first, not wanting to sound alarmed. "Josie? Lila? Where are you?" No answer. She tried again, louder this time. "Girls?" Nothing. A small flutter of worry settled in her chest. She walked quickly around the yard, checking behind the water trough, near the chicken coop, Even around the side of the house. There was no sign of them. "Henry," she called, her voice firmer than before. He stepped from the barn, wiping his hands on a rag. "Everything all right?" I can't find the girls," she said, trying her best to keep calm. Henry frowned and scanned the yard. "Lila! Josie!" he called, his voice carrying farther than hers. Silence. A moment later, Henry's expression shifted. A worried crease formed between his eyebrows. "They wouldn't have gone far," he said. "But we'd best look." Eleanor and Henry split up, circling the house and scanning the nearby fields. The wind seemed to hum through the tall grass, but no laughter or footsteps broke the quiet. Then, something caught Eleanor's attention, a faint movement near the narrow path leading toward the trees, the same path that continued toward the riverbank. Her heart thudded. She hurried in that direction, calling out again, her voice filled with rising concern. "Lila! Josie!" Again, no answer. But when she reached the line of trees, she saw small footprints in the softer patches of dirt. Two different sizes, walking side by side. Her breath hitched. They had gone toward the river. The memory of Henry's warning echoed in her mind, sharp and sudden. She picked up her skirt slightly and walked faster, her steps light but urgent. The trail grew narrower, tree branches arching above her like reaching arms. The air felt cooler here, and she could hear something faint in the distance, a soft rushing sound. The river. She walked even faster, almost running now. As she reached the open area near the riverbank, she froze for a moment at the sight before her. The river was wider than she expected, flowing with surprising strength. Water glimmered in the sunlight, but it moved quickly, swirling in places where the current deepened. And there, near a cluster of bushes, at the edge of the river, stood the two girls. Josie was leaning forward, trying to reach for a patch of berries growing near the water. Lila was beside her, stretching to pick some as well. The ground beneath them seemed soft and unstable. Eleanor felt her whole body tighten with fear, not a loud, panicked fear, but a deep, urgent one that made her move without hesitation. "Girls," she called, her voice firm but steady. "Stay right where you are." Both children jerked their heads up, surprised. Josie quickly pulled her hand back from the bushes. Lila froze in place. "Miss Ellie," Josie called. "We were just getting berries. We didn't go far." Eleanor stepped closer, careful not to startle them. "I know, sweetheart, but this spot is not safe. The ground here can give way very quickly. Please come back toward me." Josie took a step back immediately. Lila tried to follow, but her small foot slipped on the damp soil. She let out a frightened gasp as her legs wobbled. Eleanor hurried forward and reached them just in time, steadying Lila with both hands and guiding her away from the soft ground. Josie clung to her sleeve as they moved farther from the river's edge. Once they stood on firm soil, Eleanor knelt before them, checking their hands and faces. Neither child was hurt, only shaken. "We didn't mean to scare you," Josie whispered, looking down. "I know you didn't," Eleanor said gently, pulling them both into a careful embrace. "But the river rises very fast at this time of year, even when the weather looks calm. It's not safe for little feet so close to the water." Lila sniffed quietly. "We just wanted to bring some berries home," she said. "For you." The simple words struck Eleanor deeply. She felt her eyes warm, not with tears of fear anymore, but with something tender and unexpected. She brushed a hand over Lila's hair. "That was very kind of you. But I'd much rather have you safe than have any berries." Josie looked up at her, worry lingering in her expression. "Are you upset with us?" Eleanor shook her head softly. "No. I'm relieved more than anything. I was scared when I couldn't find you. Next time, please tell me before you go anywhere. All right?" Both girls nodded solemnly. Henry soon arrived, breathing hard from searching, and relief washed across his face when he saw Eleanor with the children. "Thank goodness," he murmured. "Are you two all right?" "We're okay," Josie said quietly. "Miss Ellie found us." Henry met Eleanor's eyes with gratitude. "Thank you." Eleanor smiled weakly, feeling the weight of the moment settle into her heart. She had not been here long. She did not know yet what her future would be on this ranch. But in that moment, guiding the girls back up the trail toward home, she felt something steady and undeniable. She cared for them already, truly, deeply, and she knew they cared for her too. The walk back was calm. Lila held Eleanor's hand the entire time, her small grip warm and trusting. Josie stayed close on the other side, quiet but thoughtful, as if the events of the morning had made her see Eleanor in a new light. The ranch came into view again, solid and familiar, bathed in gentle sunlight. As they approached, Eleanor felt her earlier fear ease, replaced by a strong sense of purpose. She had promised herself she would help the girls while their father was gone. But now, she felt something more, a determination to protect them, guide them, and be there in every way she could. The day had gone wrong for a little while, but it had also forged a bond she had not expected, and deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning of something important. The sun had barely risen when the rooster crowed loudly outside. Eleanor was already awake, sitting on the edge of her bed and brushing her hair. She had hardly slept the night before. The memory of the girls near the river kept returning to her mind, how close they had been to danger, how frightened she had felt, and how relieved she was when she brought them safely home. She knew the girls had not meant to worry her, but the experience had shaken her more than she let anyone see. She stepped quietly into the hallway. The house still felt peaceful, with soft morning light resting on the wooden floorboards. She paused outside the girls' room and heard faint whispers and small giggles. That sound alone made her shoulders relax. When she entered the kitchen, Henry was already there, chopping vegetables for breakfast. He looked more rested than he had in days. "Morning, Miss Briggs," he said with a tired smile. "Sleep all right?" "As well as one can after such a day," she answered, trying to sound cheerful. He nodded knowingly. "The girls told me you handled everything real calm. You've got a good head on your shoulders." Eleanor blushed slightly. Compliments always felt strange to her, but his words warmed her anyway. She continued helping with breakfast while Henry stepped outside to check the weather and the animals. Soon the girls came into the kitchen, both freshly dressed. Lila ran straight to Eleanor and wrapped her little arms around her waist. Josie followed her quietly, giving a shy smile. "Good morning," Eleanor said, brushing Lila's hair gently. "Good morning, Miss Ellie," they said together. Their trust brought a sweet ache to her heart. She felt protective of them strongly, naturally more than she had expected in such a short time. After breakfast, the girls helped with small chores inside, while Henry worked outdoors. Eleanor tidied the house and washed the dishes, glancing at the clock from time to time. She wondered when Thomas Hargrove would return. His letter had been short, and she had no sense of how long his illness would keep him away. As she shook out the tablecloth near the front porch, she noticed something unusual in the distance. A wagon was moving down the dirt road toward the ranch. The horse attached to it seemed tired, but steady, and on the wagon bench sat a man wearing a familiar-looking hat. Her breath caught. "Henry," she called softly but urgently. He stepped out of the barn, wiping sweat from his forehead. "What's wrong?" She pointed toward the wagon. "Someone's coming." Henry squinted at the approaching figure. Then his eyes widened. "Well, I'll be," he said with a surprised tone. "That's Mr. Hargrove." Eleanor's heart thumped inside her chest. She had prepared herself for his arrival for days, but now that it was happening, she felt a strange mix of excitement, nervousness, and fear. She smoothed her dress quickly, brushed off dust, and tried to calm her breathing. "Girls," Henry called. "Your pa is home." The girls came running out of the house so quickly that Eleanor had to step aside to avoid being knocked over. Josie's eyes lit up like she had been given the best gift in the world. Lila squealed with joy. The wagon rolled to a gentle stop. Thomas Hargrove climbed down slowly, careful and steady. He looked a little thinner than Eleanor expected, his face pale from recent illness. But his eyes were warm and alive. The girls rushed to him and wrapped their arms around him at the same time. "Papa, Papa," they cried. Thomas laughed softly, hugging them both tightly. "My sweet girls," he murmured. "I missed you more than words." Eleanor watched from a few steps away, giving the family space. She felt a small smile form on her lips. The girl's happiness made her chest feel warm. After a few minutes, Thomas looked up and noticed her. His expression shifted, not unkind, but curious. Thoughtful. He stepped forward, leaning slightly on the wagon for support. "You must be Miss Briggs," he said, his voice gentle but tired. "Yes," she replied softly. "I'm Eleanor. I'm very glad you're feeling better." He nodded. "Thank you for coming all this way. I apologize for not being here to greet you." "There is no need to apologize," she said quickly. "You needed care. Your health comes first." His eyes held hers for a moment, full of gratitude. "I appreciate that. And I thank you for helping with the girls. Henry wrote to me at the clinic. Told me you've done more than expected." Eleanor lowered her gaze modestly. "I've only tried to do what was needed." Henry joined them and added, "She's been a blessing around here, Thomas. Couldn't ask for better help." Thomas looked at Eleanor again, this time with deeper appreciation. Before she could respond, Josie tugged on his sleeve. "Papa, did Henry tell you what happened yesterday?" she asked quietly. Thomas's expression changed instantly. "No," he said slowly. "What happened?" Henry cleared his throat. "Maybe we should talk inside first. You look tired from the ride." But Thomas gently held up a hand. "Tell me." So Henry told him. He explained how the girls had wandered down toward the river, how the ground had been soft and risky, and how Eleanor had found them and brought them back safely. His voice was calm, but the seriousness of the story was clear. Thomas listened without interrupting, his face frozen in a mixture of shock and deep worry. When Henry finished, the rancher turned toward his daughters. Josie looked down at her shoes. Lila clung to his pant leg. "Girls," he said softly but firmly, "you must never go near the river alone. It can rise fast, even on sunny days. I'm thankful you're safe. But please promise me you won't wander that far again." "We promise," Josie whispered, her voice trembling. "We're sorry," Lila said, hugging him tightly. Thomas knelt slowly, his illness still making his movements stiff, and held them both close. "I'm not angry. I'm just relieved you're safe." Then he stood and faced Eleanor. She met his eyes cautiously, unsure of what he would say. Would he be upset that she allowed the girls out of her sight? Would he think she had failed in her duty? But the look on his face held none of that. Instead, his eyes were filled with a quiet awe and emotion she did not expect. "You saved my children," he said, his voice low and sincere. "I cannot express how grateful I am." Eleanor swallowed hard, suddenly unsure what to say. "I only did what anyone would do." "No," he said gently. "Not everyone would have done what you did. You went after them without hesitation. You kept them safe. And because of you," his voice wavered slightly, "because of you, they are standing here now." The girls stood beside him, each holding one of his hands. Eleanor felt her heart swell at the sight. The moment felt heavy, meaningful, quietly emotional. Thomas took a breath as if steadying himself. "I arrived home expecting to meet a stranger," he continued, "but instead I find someone who has already become important to my children's lives." Eleanor felt warmth rise in her chest, but she stayed quiet, unsure what he would say next. He finally drew in a slow breath and said, "Miss Briggs, may I speak with you privately for a moment?" Her heart fluttered. Of course. They walked a short distance away, stopping near a wooden post that held a lantern by the porch. The sunlight hit Thomas's face softly, highlighting how tired he still looked, but also how sincere he was. "I need to tell you something," he began gently. "Before your arrival, I expected our meeting to be simple, formal, even. I thought we would spend time getting to know each other slowly, and see if we might build a life together." Eleanor nodded, listening carefully. "But after hearing what happened, after seeing the way my girls look at you, I realize everything has changed. When I being the five, I realize everything has changed." She felt her hands grow warm, and clasped them together to steady herself. "You came here as a stranger," he continued. "Yet you have given my daughters comfort, safety, and kindness in only a few days. That is not something I could ever take lightly." Eleanor's breath caught. She could feel a gentle trembling inside her chest. Thomas looked down for a moment, gathering his thoughts. Then, with quiet sincerity, he lifted his eyes again. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "I want to offer you something meaningful. Something from the heart. You have earned far more than simple thanks." She blinked in confusion. "I don't understand." "You will," he said with a small smile. "I ask only that you stay until tomorrow. After I rest tonight, I want to speak with you again. Properly." The gentle certainty in his voice made her pulse quicken. She nodded. "I will stay," she said. His smile deepened, touched with relief. Together they walked back toward the house, where the girls waited eagerly on the porch. Eleanor could feel their excited eyes on her. And she realized something important. She was no longer just a guest here. The girls saw her as someone safe, someone they trusted. And Thomas, sick, tired, grateful Thomas, looked at her with a warmth she did not expect. The day had changed everything. And tomorrow, she felt certain, would change even more. The morning after the storm felt strangely calm, as if the land itself wanted to rest. The air smelled clean, the sky was soft blue, and a gentle breeze moved slowly across the ranch. Sarah stood outside the small house with a warm cup of tea in her hands. She looked across the fields that were still damp from last night's rain, and although her body was tired, her heart felt lighter than it had in a long time. She knew that the world was not perfect, but she also knew that something inside her had changed. She no longer felt alone. She felt like she belonged somewhere. Inside the house, Lily and Claire were already awake. They were whispering to each other, trying to decide whether they should go check the chicken coop or help Sarah with breakfast. They still seemed excited from the day before. Children had a special way of seeing joy even after fear, and that joy filled the house like sunlight. Sarah placed her cup down and started preparing a simple breakfast. She chopped vegetables, stirred eggs in a bowl, and smiled as she heard the girls arguing about who would collect the eggs. Claire insisted that she could do it faster, and Lily argued that she was older and therefore more responsible. Their cheerful voices made the small kitchen feel warm. Just as Sarah finished setting a pot on the stove, someone knocked on the door. The knock was firm, but not loud. For a moment she froze. Unexpected visits on a ranch usually meant someone coming for help or bringing news. She wiped her hands, took a calm breath, and opened the door. Standing outside was a man she had never seen before. He was tall, with dark hair brushed back neatly, and he wore clothes that looked well kept but dusty from travel. His boots were covered with dry mud, and he had the kind of tired eyes that belonged to a man who had spent many hours on the road. "Good morning," he said politely. "I hope I'm not disturbing you." "Not at all," Sarah answered gently. "How can I help you?" The man removed his hat with both hands. "My name is Daniel Turner. I believe my daughters live here." At that exact moment, Lily's voice rose behind Sarah. "Papa?" Before Sarah could say anything else, Lily and Claire rushed forward and squeezed past her. They ran straight into the man's arms, and he held them tightly. Relief washed over his face as he pulled them close, as if he had been waiting many days just to see them safe. "Papa, you came back," Lily cried. "We missed you," Claire added, hugging him around the waist. Daniel knelt down and touched their faces gently. "I missed you too. Every single day." Sarah stepped back quietly to give them space. She watched them with soft eyes. She knew the girls loved their father deeply, and she also knew he had been away longer than planned. Seeing them together made her chest warm and slightly heavy at the same time. After a few moments, Daniel stood and looked at Sarah with a grateful expression. "You must be Miss Sarah," he said. "My girls told me someone kind was taking care of them, but I didn't fully understand what they meant until now. Thank you. Truly." Sarah shook her head lightly. "They're wonderful girls," she replied. "They helped me just as much as I helped them." Daniel smiled, but his expression carried a mix of sadness and appreciation. "I've been traveling for months. he explained. Work took me far from home, and the journey back took longer than expected. When I finally reached the town, I heard what happened with the storm, and how my daughters were saved. A man named Harrison told me you kept them safe. Sarah felt her cheeks warm. I only did what anyone would have done. Daniel shook his head. No, Miss Sarah. Most people do not risk themselves for children they barely know, and most people do not comfort and guide them with such patience. He looked at his daughters again, and then back at her. You brought them kindness when they needed it most. Before Sarah could respond, Claire tugged at her father's sleeve and whispered something. Daniel bent down to listen, and she spoke louder when she thought he hadn't heard her. Papa, Sarah makes good food. Can we stay for breakfast? Daniel laughed softly, a sound filled with warmth. If Miss Sarah allows it. Of course, Sarah said, smiling. I still need to finish cooking. Come in. Crom in. They all stepped inside. The girls helped set the table while Sarah continued cooking. Daniel stood nearby, watching with thoughtful eyes. He seemed surprised by how calm and happy his daughters looked. He noticed how easily they moved around Sarah, how comfortable they were, and how they kept glancing at Sarah as if she were someone important to them. When breakfast was ready, they all sat down. Lily talked about the storm last night, explaining every detail with dramatic gestures. Claire added her own comments about the muddy water, and how Sarah carried them inside to keep them warm. Daniel listened carefully, sometimes looking at Sarah with gratitude that grew deeper each second. After the meal, the girls asked if they could show their father the barn and the field where they liked to play. Daniel agreed, and they rushed out excitedly. For a moment, the house quieted again. Daniel turned to Sarah and spoke gently. I owe you more than thanks. I owe you something that shows how much I appreciate what you did for my daughters. That isn't necessary, Sarah replied. They were scared, and I was here. That's all. No, he said softly but firmly. It is more than that. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small envelope. Sarah looked at it but did not touch it. Daniel held it out with both hands, not forcing her, only offering. I saved this money for a long time, he said, but my daughters being safe is worth more than anything I could ever earn. Please accept it. 2. Sarah hesitated. Part of her wanted to say no immediately. She wasn't used to being given anything. But Daniel's eyes were sincere, and she could tell this meant something important to him. Thank you, she said quietly. She took the envelope, but she held it carefully, almost uncertainly. I'll use it well. Daniel nodded, relieved. I also want you to know something else, he added gently. My daughters have never spoken about anyone the way they speak about you. They say you listen to them. You care about them. That means more to me than I can say. Sarah looked down at her hands. She didn't know how to respond, so she simply said, They're easy to care for. Daniel smiled kindly. You've changed their lives, Miss Sarah. You may not know it yet, but you have. And if you decide to stay on this land, you will always have a place here. His words spread through her like warm light. No one had told her that before. No one had ever said she had a place anywhere. Before she could answer, the girls burst through the door laughing. Papa, Lily said breathlessly. Come see the baby calf. Daniel stood, chuckling. All right. I'm coming. He looked at Sarah once more and said softly, We'll talk again soon. Sarah watched them walk out together. Lily held her father's hand, and Claire danced beside them. But every few steps, one of the girls turned around to look at Sarah, as if making sure she would follow. Later that afternoon, Daniel returned to the house while the girls rested under a tree. He looked calm but thoughtful, as if he had been turning something over in his mind all day. Miss Sarah, he said gently, may I speak with you? Of course. He took a small breath. I know you came here as a mail-order bride. I learned that from the man in town who arranged everything. He told me you arrived after a long journey, and that you expected a different life. Sarah nodded slowly. She wasn't embarrassed, only unsure where he was going with this. Daniel continued, I don't know what your past held. I don't know what promises were made or broken. But I do know one thing. You deserve a life where you are respected and valued. A life where you are not alone. Sarah felt her heart beat a little faster. His voice was gentle, not demanding, not assuming, simply honest. My daughters, he said softly, already love you. And I respect you deeply. If you choose to stay here, I would be honored, not just out of gratitude, but because I believe you belong here with us. The breeze moved quietly between them. Sarah felt emotion rise in her chest, not fear, not worry, but something warm and steady. She looked at the fields, at the house, at the place that had slowly begun to feel like home. Then she looked back at Daniel. I think, she said softly, that I would like to stay. Daniel's shoulders relaxed, and a gentle smile softened his face. Then I'm glad, he replied. Just then, the girls came running again, calling both their names. Sarah and Daniel stepped outside together. The sun was setting, spreading gold and pink across the land. Lily and Claire reached for both of them, taking their hands as if it were the most natural thing in the world. And in that quiet moment, Sarah realized she didn't just save two children. She found a place where her heart could finally rest, a place where she was needed, a place where she was wanted, a place she could call home.